Alright, on today's video, we are going to be building a dry bar for a client that I have. There's not much more to say. So let's start ripping down some material. We got to build ourselves the shape, the kind of U shape. So let's build that. Rip down material. Let's get nasty. Now that all the wood is cut, I just basically got to build 3 frames to make that U. So basically just screw 3 rectangles together. So before I skin these, which is basically wrapping it in 1/4 inch plywood, I'm going to add a couple cross supports because I'm going to be doing a mixing station shelf, and I want to make sure that I'm screwing into actual material besides just a 1/4 inch plywood. And then the outer material that I'm wrapping this thing in on the outside, I want to make sure that I'm screwing that also into something. So what I'm going to do, so therefore I don't have to worry about these ever getting mixed up, top and bottom, stuff like that, take a 6-inch spacer block, I'm going to stick it in there, run my spacer there, go to the bottom, do the exact same thing, and therefore I'll always know where my cross spacers are so I can make sure I'm getting things adhered well. You always want to make sure you're sturdy. You never know how drunk people are going to get around the bar. Now it's time for skinning, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue all over it, and then I'm just going to brad nail it down, and then I'll put screws in places, but we're going to do both sides, so once this side's done, be completely sealed up. Again, I know where these cross pieces are. Those are the important ones for screwing stuff on later. Gotten the entire thing skinned all up, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the 2x4 base that's actually going to sit on the ground, keep everything up off the ground, just building another box. A lot of boxes in this. Alright, so now you can see in these back 2 corners I have these 2 2x4s facing the wrong direction. What that is for is because I'm hoping to have built this thing wide enough that it won't be tippy at all. I'm hoping that it's great. The flooring is going to get put around it, they'll trim it out, and I'm hoping that there's 0 issues with the tipping. But because I can't predict that there won't ever be a problem with tipping, I put those boards in there so that they can eventually, when I do the decking on that, I'll make panels removable, and if they ever need to, they'll be able to anchor it into their floor. It's going in a basement, I don't want to drill into someone's new concrete. So, if need be, we'll be able to do that later on. It's just one of those things we gotta think ahead, make sure that it doesn't go, because people will get drunk and crazy. So right now I'm putting together the mixing shelf thing. So one thing that I gotta remember is I'm going to have a ice tray that recesses into this shelf. So when I'm putting these cross supports in, I'm leaving myself enough space so that I don't screw myself later on and have to cut out the support for the ice bath container thing. Now this is where it comes into play where I know where those cross supports that I buried inside those skins are. So therefore I can screw this shelf into all of that and make sure the shelf is really, really stable. Like a very small glove. Okay, now as you can see, I only did that center piece, and again, this goes back to later on if this thing ever needs to get bolted to the floor. These I'm not going to screw in, I'm just going to let them sit in here. I'll have a lip that comes up here, and so these won't be moving all around, but again, if need be, they can always bolt that right to the ground, that 2x4 right there. So now that we've got the carcass completely done, the top's basically mocked in, now what we can do is we can go through, and this will be the big portion of the build, is I got to build the stuff in here. So we're going to have a wine rack right here with a door. We're going to have 2 opening storage cabinets here with just an opening spot here for cups, and then the spot right over there, that's going to be just for a trash can to go, and that's also going to be where the top, where that stainless steel container drops down. So now we can start doing all of that. So moving on to these doors, what I did is you just measure here to here. Make sure that you're square when doing doors. I was actually very, very square. Very, very proud of myself for that. So all I did was I just measured from here to here, and then there. Divided this measurement by 2, and that's how I came up with all of these. So that is not the right one that goes there. This is the one that goes there. So there we go. I got those, and then here's my other pieces. So now I got to build these doors. All I did was I set up a jig over on the miter saw. I cut them so they're all right. Now all I got to do is I'm going to center up a groove in here, and that'll allow me to recess a panel in there, and that'll give me doors. So now that we got the grooves cut in, as you can see there, we're going to take our panels that we cut, which somebody forgot to hit record, so you didn't get to see me do, and we're just going to put this panel in these grooves, like so. Tucky tucky, Kentucky tucky. And before we slap the other sides on, we're going to throw a little dab of dew on there. Now I'm not gluing the panel in, and the reason I'm not gluing the panel in is because I want the panel to be able to float. The panel should have plenty of room to expand and contract. So basically, it's like I believe it's called a floating panel. Could be wrong on that one. So we're going to put it in, line her up. Okay, and just like that, you have a door all ready to be sanded. This panel should float around in here. Should be enough room for this thing to go. Should be good to go. So once we built one, we have to build another one, which I won't show you. Okay, so here we have the garbage area all set up. We've got the doors right on here. We've got the storage area right here for like cups. I'm waiting on going to get some wood for the drawer because it kind of screwed up on that sizing that. Now we have this space right here, and this space right here is going to be for a wine rack. I had my wife go buy some wine so I would make sure that I had the right sizing for bottles. So we're going to build a small wine rack in here, and keep in mind though is I've got to make it so it can be removable because that bottom panel has to come out. Let's make a wine rack. So I'm going to build a stupid simple wine rack for here. Now you could actually take this and build this and put it on like your countertop or whatever. But what we need to know is we need to know the diameter of the bottom and the diameter of the neck. So I got my handy dandy calipers. Boom. So this is 2.85 inches. And this is 1.18. So, alright, so I'm going to go 1.25 inches up here. And I'm going to go, I'll probably just go 3 inches there. Alright, so I've marked out on all my boards where I want these notches to go for to hold the wine. So you can see I've got them spaced apart, and then I just center punched them all so that my drill bit will line up. I'm going to use 1.25 inch hole saw and a 3-inch hole saw because luckily I had those. And that board just fell. So I'm going to take it and I'm just going to drill, hopefully, half holes through all of these. See what happens. Feels a little dangerous. Now if you're ever doing a wine rack like this, take a board that's solid like this, like a 1x6 or 1x8, drill your holes completely, rip it directly in half. Be way easier than trying to drill half holes. So got the little hole guy, the big hole guy. I'm gonna want to take my router and I'm gonna round over all of this and then sand it so it's like nice. But I mean, all we're going for is something like this here. Nice and simple. Doesn't have to be overcomplicated. And this is, you can probably go, we'll go 5.5. Therefore I can get a 1x6 and I am just gonna run a 1x6 up each side. I'm going 3 high so I can get 9 bottles of wine. I think that's plenty. I'm not a wine drinker. Is that plenty of wine? It might not be enough wine. We'll do that. We'll pretty it up as we go along, but that's kind of the idea. So now I'm just going to go through and round over a bunch of stuff. I have all the boards cut. Everything's been pre-drilled and labeled where it needs to go. These are going to be the sides. So in theory, all I need to do is just put this thing together with some screws and glue. You know, I was realizing for my first wine rack, it's pretty cool. It's being made where you'll never really be able to see it very much, but cool. All right. We're gonna add some brackets down on the bottom, just so I can, by brackets I mean some boards. Add some boards on the bottom, and that way we'll be able to screw it into that removable panel in the bottom. So the last thing we need to do is we need to build the drawer for right here. Now, according to the instructions, and yes, I read the instructions, I need to leave a 1/2 inch gap over here and here. So basically my drawer has to be 1 inch smaller than the opening, according to the instructions. So that's what I'm doing. So basically I'm just gonna build a box that's 1 inch shorter than here and leave yourself about a 1 inch gap or so up here. That way the drawer can fold in here and slide on the drawer slides. So build another box. Alright, let's see if it fits. Now when doing drawer slides by yourself, I suggest you get about 3 or 4 different hands because it's pretty terrible to do. Put drawer slides on, and there you go. It sits a little recessed a little bit because that is your drawer face. Now you need to put the drawer face on. Now there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, and I know one method people like to do is the tape and super glue trick. But because I don't have this thing attached, and I won't until it's done, I'm just going to move this, come in here and get where I want and So now what I'm doing is I'm adding these boards, these 1x6s across the top with a nice overlap on both sides. Now what I'm doing that for, I'm doing that so that I can use this board to screw from underneath and actually screw the top on without having to screw through the top. So I'm going to do this on this front side, and I'm going to do them on the sides. Again, that way I can get everything underneath. I'm just trying to make this thing as even as possible. And now, because I have a lip on this side and on the side right here, I'll be able to screw in from underneath on both sides and actually attach the top. The next step that we need to do is we need to face around the whole thing, and basically we're just going to trim around it. We're going to do a corrugated metal around the reps. I don't know if I've said that yet or not. And we need something to kind of chain all that in so you don't have all those rough exposed edges, and just kind of clean it, make it look nice. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use this wood. I don't know what this is. It's a rough sawn wood. I've had it for about a year that I've been hoarding it. I think it's time that we put it to use. Speaking of putting it to use, we're going to go do something that I have never done. I got a joiner a few months ago. Never used it. I figured this is a good opportunity to get these boards a little straightened out edges, and we're gonna go plane something for the first time. But I have to do it in the garage because I don't have room in the workshop. Let's try this for the first time. So did that work well? I don't know. I don't know if the boards look pretty good to me. I don't know if they really needed to be joined, but I thought it'd be cool to use the joiner. I got more research things to do on this to see if I can actually use this thing right. But those have been possibly joined, so now we got to bring them into the shop so then we can rip them down into the same widths and then start doing some facing. Alright, so now that I got this bottom rail on, what that's going to do is the corrugated metal is going to sit on top of that, but I want the rest of the trimmed area for the metal to actually slide in and behind, like with like a little notch groove. That way anything that's not cut square, anything that was hidden, any sharp edges are hidden, but I want the bottom to sit on there because if I notch that or put that groove in there, stuff's gonna get in there and be hard to get out. So we'll leave the bottom flush, or that'll all sit flush, and I'm just gonna notch all the rest of the stuff that you will see. It's basically just cut, measure, cut, measure. It's pretty boring, but it's gotta be done. This is what we love. So I will run this up there and hold on to the top of metal. Now luckily before all the glue dried up in these top corners, I realized that if I glue all the tops, I won't be able to slide that metal in because I'll have to really kink it and bend it, and I don't want to do that. So luckily this side was already glued, but I got it all popped off. Everything is cut. Alright, so now what we got to do before we fully install this top, we have the stainless steel tray, which is going to be the ice bin. Now, if you've been realizing I've been working on this quite a bit, you're thinking that I'm probably scuffing it all up. It's actually flipped upside down right now, so this is going to be the bottom. So we need to cut out the hole for that ice bin to fit in, and then we can flip this over and then get it set for life. We're at the point that I've been dreading, and that is cutting the top, because the top has to I mean, it's the top. So it's the most important centerpiece we have. And I only have the one sheet, and the sheet was $80, so I don't want to screw this up. You're gonna watch me in fast motion. Crap my pants. Alright, another new tool. I've never used this before, but it is a plug cutter, and it's basically just a bit that goes inside your drill press to make plugs. Let's use that for the first time. So this thing is fully assembled, so now it is putty time. It is time to fill all of the holes from the nails and screws, and then after that we're going to do my favorite thing in the world, which is sand. And I'm also very sarcastic on that, so I'll do that, and then after that we can make her look prettier. So apparently when I hit record, I double punched it, and it recorded 1 second of what I just filmed. So let me just explain it to you and pretend it, okay? So I'm going to put the holes for the handles on the doors before I finish them. To do that, I'm going to use this little kit thing. And I bought this for my kitchen. If you saw me using it in my kitchen, go check out that video. It was like $7 on Amazon, and it comes with this little dude that goes onto the side of the door and allows you to drill your holes there, and because they have all the pre-marked holes, it keeps everything centered and aligned. And then it also comes with one for a drawer face, and you use that, set it, and then all your drawer pulls are all level and not all weird. So using this should look all nice. This one came with a punch, so I just centered it, found out, because you can see it comes with a bunch of different hole locations. I just figured out the ones that I wanted, punched it, and drilled my hole. So sorry you didn't get to see it live in action, but I have explained it to you. So if you're doing anything with doors or drawers and you want your handles and knobs to look nice, I would really recommend going to Amazon, picking one of these up. They're like again, I think I paid $7 or $8. So it is 86 degrees in the shop right now. Now the whole time building this thing, it has been low 70s, high 60s, somewhere around there. But the day that I have to mask up and sand for like an hour and a half, it's got to be 86 in the shop. I got the air purifier fan running to get some circulation, but this is going to be a miserable experience. And then mask up and get to do my favorite thing ever. Okay, since it is now the third day that I'm working on this thing and it's in like the 80s, we got a new fan. Thanks to Menards having them on sale. Also, I have both the top areas. They've been clear coated twice. I have to do a couple more coats to clear. Everything else has already been cleared, so we got to reassemble the base while I keep clearing the tops. So this thing needs some kind of stop, something that's going to hold this thing in so the doors don't just go all over the place. And I knew this was going to happen, and I do this on purpose. So I'm going to have to add a piece up here to add little magnets to. But like I said, I knew I was going to do it, and trying to add these little magnet strips up inside this cabinet upside down with these tiny screws is always a pain. So knowing I had to do this, I put the magnets on first, and now all I'm going to do is screw this up into here, and that'll give me my spot for my doors to close on, and then I don't have to fight with all the screws. Alright, so if you remember all the way in the back of this video, which for you was just probably 10 minutes, for me, which was about a week. If you remember when it was a bare frame, I laid those stringer things all the way through, and I said those were screwing for later, and this is what they're for, screwing in these panels. Now, if you remember, they were 8.5 inches. If you don't remember, I wrote it down, okay? But now I also have this, which is my 8.5 inch spacer, so I can run this to the top of here, screw this to the floor, screw there. That's going to keep an even spacing. We should make these things look pretty lined up, and then make these self-stacking screws go right into those back studs. And that's how we're going to attach all of that. So if you're wondering why I didn't glue this when I'm putting screws in it, that's because my client, like myself, has 2 young little boys. And my assumption is her boys are probably a lot like mine, and this is going to be in the basement, and at some point a ball is probably going to smash into the side of this. It's going to be dented, and these panels may need to be replaced at some point in time. This is going to allow them the opportunity to be able to pull this all and then replace those panels if need be. Always got to think ahead. Children, and honestly, it's a bar, so of drunks too. So now all that's left to do is to finish up the tops on this thing, put that one top in there, and then deliver this thing. So let's talk about how I'm finishing these tops. Now I could have went with epoxy, but epoxy is expensive and hard to work with, especially when the shop's fluctuating in temperature. Right now it's 85 degrees. So what I'm using is this Hellsman urethane. I use this, if you watched my video on my end tables, I use this on there. I've had them for about 1.5 years, and they've been beat up by the puppy and by my kids. They've been spilt on, and they've worked absolutely great. This stuff has lasted up, and I'm very, very happy with it. So this should absolutely be 100% fine for the bar top. But like I said, I'm doing probably 5 coats on this thing because it's pretty cold out in the shop when it's 85 degrees. Anyway, sorry about that. So let me show you what I do. So I've got 2 coats on it right now. Let me reach behind you, sorry about that. So what I do in between every coat is I take an old piece of used 120 sandpaper, so it's probably the equivalent to 220, maybe a little higher, but make sure you don't get brand new. And I'm just gonna lightly scuff over the whole thing. Just lightly scuff up the whole thing. What that's gonna do is it's gonna knock down any of those big debris that kind of set in it, and as you kind of go up in coats, it kind of thins itself out. I'm gonna go over that and then take a very damp cloth. I usually just use a really dry cloth, and I keep it clean, and then you just wipe everything off, get a really good wipe to get it nice and clean, and then I do another coat. And then the final one is you just want to make sure that it's super duper clean with dust, and then you do another coat. That's how I do the tops. I'm not going to bore you with watching me because that's like watching paint dry. I'm going to flash to the whole thing done right now. Well, actually, no, you're going to have to watch me do some other stuff first. I got to install the other top. Then you can see it. So I'm going to put a bead of silicone around this mixing station area. I'm going to do that because I anticipate at some point something's going to get spilled, and this will prevent it from that spill traveling down and beyond. Everything should be contained up here. The only problem will be where this is cut off for the extra, and that the spill should be contained up here on this, which has 5 coats of protectant on it compared to the bottoms that have 1 or 2. Alright, so obviously I don't have the top on right now, but let me explain to you what this whole section has here. So this spot up here is your mixing station where you'll be able to keep all your bottles and everything like that. You have this stainless steel drop-in 6-inch deep pan that you can keep ice in, and then right below that is your space you can put a garbage can, because obviously you'll probably need that. Maybe if you do a dual thing, you might be able to do garbage and cans, I don't know. But then we bring it over to here. And this is where you can keep all of your glasses, all of your cups, stuff like that. And then down here, we just have a big old open storage area that's covered up by doors. Keep all of your liquor and everything down there. If eventually they want, they can actually add a lock to this. And then we come over to here, you have a drawer where you'll keep all of your stuff to keep inside a drawer. Wine bottle openers, stuff like that. And then down here we have a 9-bottle wine rack. So that's your setup here. I think this thing was a lot of work, but I think it came out really, really sweet looking. I really like the metal, the corrugated metal that wraps around the whole thing. The top came out pretty nice. I'm really happy with it. Yeah, so let's montage the look around here. Alright guys, that is going to wrap this bar project up. This was a absolutely massive project, and really, I guess there's nothing else to do but to break it in the right way. I'm out of Jack Daniels, so I guess this is the second best right way. But, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys on the next one.